Today, let's dig a little deeper into the chart of accounts, and I'll let you know some more creative or advanced ways to use it. Number one is to use custom accounts for owner's draws. So as we've talked about, anytime the owner is putting money into the business or taking it out, it is an equity account. And the account that QuickBooks gives you is pretty basic. I think it's just called like owner's draw. So I would encourage you to refine that a bit and make it even more specific. So I always have something for owner's pay. So typically an owner will withdraw the same amount every month. Maybe occasionally they might take a bigger draw, but maybe they're withdrawing like $3,000 every month for like their paycheck. And some of this may depend a bit on the type of business. So if you're an LLC or if you're a corporation, there's like slightly different things going on. So in the equity section, I would have the owner's pay, and then underneath it, you could also have owner's contributions. So in smaller businesses, sometimes the owner needs to add some cash back into their business to help with cash flow. So that would be them contributing equity into the business. And then you can see like the positives and the negatives, the pluses and the minuses broken out. Otherwise, it'll just give you like the net, which isn't as helpful. Another thing within owner's draws that can be a little tricky is taxes. So again, depending on the business structure, if you have an LLC, then the taxes are like combined with their personal taxes. So when they pay taxes, it's actually equity. But a lot of times business owners are paying from their business bank account just because it kind of makes more sense somehow, or maybe that's where they have the cash sitting. So you can also make a category in equity for personal taxes if needed. And then you may have some other types of taxes in the expenses account. All right, number two, you can use account numbers if it is helpful. So I find this is helpful with bigger clients. One time I went into a client's office and I was like, whoa, they have all these crazy numbers in front of all of their accounts. And that was the first time I'd seen it. And for a while I didn't realize that it was actually QuickBooks that can automatically put all those numbers, and I thought they just had a numbering system of their own. This was like my second or third client. So I don't do this a ton, but basically then you can kind of group things together. So maybe like all the 4,000s are income, and then all the 6,000s are like different types of supplies. Sometimes you'll have a bigger business and other people are getting reimbursed for expenses, and they have like a number. They're like, okay, I'm getting reimbursed for expense number like 6532. And then the accountant or the bookkeeper knows, okay, this is going to go in this category. So with that client, I actually had like a little cheat sheet printed out by my desk. And so my frequently used categories, I'd be like, okay, it's like 279. And then I could it actually ends up being quicker sometimes. Instead of typing in something like utilities, electricity, utilities, water, whatever. So some people just work that into their system. It's kind of nice when exporting to Excel also, because then you can organize it different ways. So I will give you a screen record on my computer that shows you how to go to settings and then turn on and off the numbers. All right, to turn on the numbers, you just go to this gear icon and then you go to accounts and settings. And then it's under advanced and chart of accounts. So right here it says enable account numbers. It defaults to off usually, but you can just turn it on and say show account numbers and save it. Then when I hit done and I go to the chart of accounts, okay, and it's not saving in the sample company, but I just Googled this so that you guys could see kind of what it looks like. So every account in the chart of accounts will have a number, and some of them are organized differently. Like you can see this one, it has the assets, the liabilities, and equity. It's a little blurry with different, hundreds. So you can they're kind of organized like that. But in my experience, usually it is a 4-digit number. So like postage and shipping is now 8660. So you could just start typing in 8660 and you would have that account category. All right, my next tip is to label based on tax categories. And I've actually never done this, but I think it's a really good idea. And I feel like accountants would love it. I guess I kind of do this in my own way that I'll explain, but this was a tip that I found online. So the IRS has a list of everything that's deductible, and it's actually usually a shorter list than my chart of accounts. But for example, I think like utilities is one of them. So you could name your account in the chart of accounts, something like this is line 27, like of the tax code, which I might not even be saying that right. Or the other example they gave was say like Schedule C advertising. So definitely ask a tax preparer if they have a preference on how you name things, and if you change any of the names will help them, because that's kind of like a win-win. So what I do, I think I've told you guys this before, and I ran it by the accountant and they're like, yes, we love that, is it was always confusing me with meals, because in our current tax code, which is always changing a little bit, some meals are deductible 100% and some meals are deductible 50%. So if it's like the boss going to dinner with a client, that's 50%. If it's a party for all the employees, like the once a year Christmas party or something, that's 100%. And like I said, I think this is changing changing. I'll research that a little bit more, and I can do a video on that if you guys are interested. But the point is, I label those two categories in QuickBooks, and so they're already broken out for the accountant, and it's really clear to both me and the accountant and anyone else who looks at it how those things will be deducted during tax time. The next idea is to create more temporary or like holding accounts. So this of course is like Ask My Accountant, where I put kind of like all my question transactions in that I'm going to go back to later and categorize. But kind of think of it as like Ask My Accountant gone wild. Like you can just go crazy on this thing. So maybe you change the name from Ask My Accountant to Question Transactions. And then underneath it you have one like attention, questions for Jane, who's the business owner. And then you have one that's like questions for the actual accountant, Jorge. Maybe you have a bunch of transactions that need to be split with a personal account, so they're mixing in stuff again. So you could put that in there, like split with personal. Or like I have, sometimes when the check images don't feed in and I'm kind of like in the flow, so I don't want to stop what I'm doing, go look up all the check images in the bank. I will put all the check transactions in one thing, like a holding account again, and then I can go back to them later and when I have time and look up all those check images. It keeps your books a little tighter and usually helps your workflow so you can continue one task before you start another. My name is Morgan if you don't know me, and I'm really close to 100,000 YouTube subscribers, which is just wild. Like I never thought that I would have that many subscribers. So I would love it if you do want more bookkeeping videos and you want to stick around. You can hit the subscribe button and get me a little closer to that goal. There's also a join button next to it that you can click on and learn more about that if you want to connect with me a little bit closer. All right, next more advanced tip is that you can clone your chart of accounts from one client to another. So QuickBooks gives you the ability to upload a chart of accounts. So maybe you have like your beautiful, perfect chart of accounts that you love for one client, and then you get a new client that's in the same industry and you're like, oh, I'm gonna just use that same chart of accounts from over there. Or sometimes people will give you a chart of accounts that they want you to use, or for certain niches, sometimes people will either give you or sell you a sample chart of accounts. So I used to be in a bookkeeper group that was specifically for bookkeeping for lawyers, and so they had a chart of accounts that they recommended. So if you don't know how to do this, I will do a quick screen record of using an Excel document with the chart of accounts and uploading that into QuickBooks. And I do have an older video, I'll leave it linked in the description box. I think I gave you guys my chart of accounts that I use as a bookkeeper for my bookkeeping business. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave it linked. While you're in my description box, you can also click on my website, that is FinePoints.biz. There's tons of free resources on there, and then I also have a paid class where you can start your bookkeeping business in 30 days. And it walks you through creating your LLC, getting your website, all the steps to have your bookkeeping business open for business. And that class, I believe, is $150. So I tried to make it fairly affordable if you're just starting out. All right, so here's an Excel document that is formatted in the way that needs to be uploaded to the chart of accounts in QuickBooks. This is actually based off my bookkeeper chart of accounts. So you can see you have the account number, which we're not using today, the account name, the type, and the detail type. So basically they're all expenses, and we just put them all in other business expenses. So this is saved on my computer, and then I'll show you how to upload it. So in the chart of accounts, we're going to go to this new account and then import. But really quick, I wanted to mention that there's going to be a lot of expenses already in here. So if you want to get rid of some of those, you can try to bulk delete them. Sometimes they're not going to delete depending on what is in there and what type of account they are. But I just checked some of them. And if you say make inactive, then it'll ask, do I really want to do this? And then it says one account wasn't deactivated. Some of the reasons are because there's something in there, they have a non-zero balance, or it's basically the accounts are being used elsewhere, and so they don't want to just them to disappear. So in that case, you might have to play around with it a little bit. You could just label it like don't use, or you can rename it maybe, or bind it with something, or you might have to delete what's in there. So that can be a little bit more complicated. So you can see this rent one can't be deleted because it's used in a recurring template. So maybe an invoice, I guess, but that is a little bit of a tangent. But if you want this to be really clean, delete what you don't want. And then to import that, go to new and then import. And then I have that file that I browsed to. So the sample company is giving me trouble today, but basically you would browse and upload that, and then you'd map the data. So you'd basically tell it which column goes to which thing. So it's kind of obvious. So let's say something like, which is the name? And then you'll say it's the column that's the name. And then you'll say, which is the account? And then it'll be expense. And so you'll map it and then import it. And then all of those will show up on the chart of accounts. And just a quick note here too, this download sample file can help you sometimes if you don't know what format it's supposed to be in. Like that one I showed you, I knew the columns that it needed because that it downloads the sample file. So I knew it needed an account number, account name, type, and detail type. The next idea is to name your chart of accounts in a way that helps you analyze the business. So we're kind of already doing this all the time, but I think if you're intentional about it, then you can even do it better. So maybe your client is complaining like, oh my gosh, I have all these credit card fees all the time. And previously you've been putting all of your credit card fees into the account called bank fees. But no, maybe this seems like a big enough deal to your client that you need to break it out separately. So you make a category called credit card fees. And if that's a really big deal to them, you can even break it out further to different credit card, like to Stripe, to PayPal, to different credit card processors that are taking money out of the business. Another example is now we have tons of online tools that we're paying like a monthly fee for. I feel like this is a cost of a lot of businesses. So I'm paying for so many things every month that it gets annoying. So I'm paying for Loom, I'm paying for ChatGPT, I'm paying for Canva, I'm paying for something called TubeBuddy. So there's all these little things that help our businesses run that we kind of are needing now. Like, oh, we definitely need a Zoom. We need to pay for a Zoom every month or whatever. So it might be helpful for your client to have a subscriptions category. So then they can easily find all those subscriptions, those software things, and they can click in there and be like, do I really need to be spending $500 on all these things? Maybe I no longer use Zoom or Canva, or maybe there is a way to bundle them or to get like a more all-in-one program that I can use for multiple things. Next idea is to have an account called prior period adjustments. So sometimes there are things that you need to adjust, usually like something went wrong and maybe it was last year, or maybe a check didn't get voided right, or maybe things got in there twice for some reason and you need to make a journal entry to kind of like clean things up. So I've had to do this on occasion, and usually you don't want it to like mess up your year's profit and loss statement. So usually I'll put in a category that I'm not using or something like miscellaneous or something like that, but it's actually more clear if you call it like prior period adjustments. So that's a really transparent way to communicate with the tax people or whoever else is going to be looking at the books. And it also keeps it separate so it's not like mixed in with things. All right, my last tip is for things that you cannot delete in the chart of accounts, because sometimes they won't let you delete things. This might be because there are transactions in it, or sometimes there's just accounts that have to do with the workings of QuickBooks, so they don't want you to delete them. But usually you can change the name. So go to edit and call it do not use undeposited funds, or do not use fixed assets. Or maybe you have an account that has like an older version name and a newer version name, and you want to remember to use the new version name. Type do not use in the old one. Kind of the moral of the story is the chart of accounts is for you to customize and use as you like and use as is most helpful to you. Thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you again next week. I wanted to tell you guys that I did an update to one of my classes. So these are my two classes. This one helps you start your bookkeeping business in 30 days. This one helps you get bookkeeping clients. And these are both on my website, FinePoints.biz. And a really quick note before I click into this is that if you take this free masterclass about how I got my first 3 clients, it will give you a coupon code that's a discount to Bookkeeper Marketing Coach. Same with this one, there's a coupon code in that free masterclass. Okay, but anyways, if you click into here, the regular price for this is $375, so it's a little bit higher than my other one, but I wanted to try to make it pretty affordable. It gives you tons and tons of great tips about how to get bookkeeping clients. So if you're looking for clients, if you're feeling discouraged, this would really help you out. And these are kind of the main 4 sections. So I have networking, online marketing, onboarding, and mental blocks. And then I just added this bonus lesson. I'm going to change this picture out. Let me know if you have a better idea for that picture. But this is based on feedback from you guys. So this lesson is all about how to get clients without social media. Because I know a lot of people feel really overwhelmed with having to keep up with what's happening on all the different social media platforms.